He who seeks to be good all the time is bound to be destroyed by those who are not. So said Niccolo Machiavelli. Now pause and think with me for a moment. How many times have you felt exhausted from always trying to be kind, understanding, patient? How often have you noticed that the more you give, the more people seem to demand from you? The more you yield, the more they expect. And the hardest part, how many times in trying to be a good person did you feel like you were losing yourself? If you've been through this, know that you're not alone. And more than that, this might just be your moment of awakening. In this video, we're going to explore the mind of one of the most misunderstood thinkers in history, Niccolo Machiavelli, a man who for centuries has been seen as a symbol of coldness and manipulation, but who in truth may be the most brutally honest mirror of the reality we avoid facing. But before you wrinkle your nose at his name, let me ask you something. What if what you call harshness is actually emotional clarity? What if what you've been taught to see as selfishness is simply self-preservation? Could it be that trying to be good all the time is, in practice, a disguised way of begging for acceptance? Could it be that in your eagerness to please everyone, you're slowly erasing yourself? We're not here to defend cruelty, nor to promote hollow selfishness. What we're going to do is even more challenging. We're going to invite you to think, to question the idea of goodness that you were taught. Because maybe, just maybe, you've been a prisoner of an image, while suffocating your truth. This video is an invitation to flip the switch, to get off the autopilot of forced niceness, and step into a state of clarity. Clarity to understand that not everyone deserves your devotion, that not every kindness will be returned, and that sometimes the truest act of kindness is to say enough. If you've ever felt like you're always giving and getting little in return, if you carry guilt for setting boundaries, if you're tired of being the nice one while others play games with you, then this video might just be the turning point of your journey. Shall we begin? Let's start at the root of the problem. Have you ever asked yourself why you feel such a deep need to always be a good person? What makes you want to please everyone, even when it comes at a great personal cost? Why are we so afraid to say no? Why is it so hard to set boundaries without feeling guilty? The answer often lies in childhood. From an early age, we were conditioned to believe that love had to be earned, and earning that love required emotional currency, being good. But for many of us, being good meant staying silent, holding back, disappearing. We learned that pleasing others was safer than asserting ourselves, that giving in was better than standing up, that swallowing pain was easier than expressing it. Over time, this emotional programming settled in as an absolute truth. Even as adults, many of us continue trying to earn love, recognition, and belonging in childish ways, giving too much, even when it wounds our very soul. The problem is that this constant effort to please comes with invisible but devastating side effects. Repressed anger starts to pile up. Self-esteem begins to crumble. Relationships become unbalanced and often abusive. You start to disappear inside your own life. Your desires are smothered, your inner voice silenced. And all of this happens because deep down you believe you'll only be accepted if you're pleasant all the time. But this belief is a trap. You adapt so much to others that you forget to be yourself. You create a character, kind, gentle, always available. But behind that mask is a tired, resentful, often lonely human being. Machiavelli didn't speak directly about childhood or emotional trauma, but his clarity can still be applied here. When he said that he who tries to be good all the time is doomed to destruction, he was pointing to a real danger. Being devoured by those who don't share your sense of justice or empathy. Being too good can put you at risk, not physical risk, but emotional. Because when you do everything to be accepted, you run the risk of abandoning yourself in the process. And abandoning yourself is the beginning of all suffering. The first step to breaking this cycle is to become aware that it's happening, and if you're here, you've already taken that step. Let's move forward together and understand how Machiavelli can help you reclaim your strength without losing your essence. When people hear the name Machiavelli, they often think of evil, coldness, and manipulation. But that view is shallow, and in many cases just plain wrong. Machiavelli wasn't a supporter of cruelty, he was a sharp observer of reality. While other philosophers sought idealistic utopian ideas, Machiavelli chose to face the world as it is, not as we wish it to be, and that choice made him labeled as cruel. But in truth, he was simply realistic. In his most famous work, The Prince, Machiavelli wrote one of the most controversial lines in the history of political philosophy. "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." At first glance, this phrase may seem harsh or even inhumane, but if we look closer, it reveals an uncomfortable and profound truth about human behavior. In the real world, those who take a clear and firm stand earn respect. Those who are able to say, "This I accept, this I do not," set boundaries. And boundaries, no matter how uncomfortable they may be for others, are essential to maintaining personal integrity. On the other hand, those who try to please everyone, who constantly seek approval, who avoid conflict at all costs, often end up being targets of disrespect, exploitation, and even humiliation. And the most painful part is that this often comes disguised as affection, friendship, or partnership. Machiavelli didn't speak only about kings and princes. He spoke about the dynamics of power, and power isn't just found in palaces. It's present in families, relationships, workplaces, friendships, and even social media. Anywhere two or more people coexist, there's a dance of forces at play, and those who can't recognize this dance are at risk of being swept away by it. He saw life as a strategic game, and in this game, those who don't play become pieces. Those who don't understand the rules become tools. Those who refuse to take a stand end up being positioned by others. And this doesn't mean losing your essence, becoming cruel or insensitive. It simply means recognizing that kindness without strategy is naivety. And naivety comes at a high cost. Machiavelli's philosophy is a call to clarity. It invites us to step out of the role of unconscious victims of circumstance and take on a more conscious, firm, and present stance in life. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Is it liberating? Even more so. Because when you realize that firmness doesn't cancel out kindness, it protects it. You begin to live with more dignity, safety, and truth. And that's what we're going to keep talking about from here on. The person who always says yes loses value. The person who never sets boundaries becomes just an option. The person who lives to please forgets themselves. You need to understand that constant availability breeds disrespect. Being good doesn't mean being foolish. Being generous doesn't mean being passive. Being mature is knowing how to balance kindness with firmness. And here we reach a delicate yet essential point. The way many people use kindness as a kind of emotional currency. At first glance, always seeming kind might look like just a virtue. But often that behavior hides something deeper, an unconscious attempt to earn love, to win affection, to be recognized through personal sacrifice. Thoughts like, if I'm nice, people will like me, or if I give enough, I'll be valued, repeat in the minds of those who grew up believing that love has to be bought. But true love isn't bought with forced gestures, with constant concessions, or with self-neglect. What ends up happening is that you give your all and receive little or nothing in return. You reach out, offer support, open your heart, and often the response is silence, indifference, or even ingratitude. And that's when frustration creeps in. The feeling of being used, the pain of realizing that everything you gave still wasn't enough to be loved the way you hoped. This is where resentment is born, when you do good expecting something in return, but that return never comes. Kindness, when used as currency, becomes emotional debt. And living in constant debt, trying to be accepted, is a subtle form of self-abandonment. Machiavelli, with his clear-eyed realism, had already warned us. Do not expect gratitude, expect resistance. That line might sound harsh, but it's deeply true. Not every act of kindness will be understood. Not every offering will be appreciated. Often the more you give, the more people treat it as an obligation. And when you try to pull back, you're seen as ungrateful or selfish. That's why it's so important to change the logic. You don't need to be good to be loved. You need to be whole. You need to be true to what you feel. You need to be authentic. Be kind, yes, but by choice, not out of need. Be generous, yes, but with awareness of your own limits. Be present, yes, but with the understanding that your presence cannot come at the cost of your well-being. True emotional maturity isn't about erasing yourself to fit others' expectations. It's about learning to give without destroying yourself, to love without losing yourself, and to help without draining your soul. Kindness, when genuine, is an expression of freedom. But when it's born out of emotional hunger, it becomes a trap. And you weren't born to be a distorted version of yourself in exchange for emotional scraps. You were born to be whole. Saying no is one of the simplest acts in theory, and one of the most challenging in practice. That's because for many, refusing something feels like rejecting someone. But the truth is different. Saying no is not rejection, it's protection. It's a way of firmly declaring, I respect myself enough not to accept this. It's a boundary that doesn't hurt. It preserves. It preserves your mental health, your emotional integrity, and above all, your identity. Machiavelli, although often associated with coldness and manipulation, never glorified selfishness. He didn't say we should trample others at any cost. He advocated for something much deeper: clarity in human relationships. To him, living with open eyes was essential. Good intentions weren't enough. In the real world, what matters are actions. Because the world doesn't run on promises or pretty words, it runs on actions and reactions. You will be tested. You will be confronted by people who will try to cross your boundaries. You will be challenged by situations that push you beyond what you consider fair. And you will be pressured to conform, to stay silent, to give in once more, in the name of peace, affection, belonging. But if you don't know where others end and you begin, all of this becomes a silent poison. You'll be emotionally swallowed. And the worst part is, you might not even notice. The only thing you'll feel is the burnout, the constant exhaustion of living a life where you say yes when you wanted to say no. Self-love is not ego, it's structure. It's what stops you from surrendering to what destroys you. It's the firm awareness that you have the right to exist, to disagree, to protect yourself, even if that upsets someone. And no, in that sense, is not a wall against others. It's a shield for yourself. It's a gesture of emotional maturity. It's what separates the desire to please from the need to stay standing. Machiavelli might have said, "He who bends all the time eventually breaks." That's why you must learn to say no without guilt, without over-explaining, without fearing you'll come off as harsh. You owe no one an apology for protecting yourself. The only loyalty you owe is to your truth, and that loyalty will guide you to relationships that are fairer, healthier, and more genuine. When we talk about boundaries, firmness, and the need to stop trying to be good all the time, many people get scared. They think the path we're suggesting leads to coldness, detachment, even selfishness. But that's not what this is about. Here, we're not inviting you to become a cold person. We're inviting you to become strategically aware. Because there is a big difference between being good and being naive, between being kind and being easily manipulated, between being generous and being a hostage to your own kindness. You don't have to harden yourself, but you do need to learn to choose when, how, and to whom you give your energy. Not everyone deserves your full devotion. Not every situation demands your best self. And not every gesture that seems sweet comes from a pure place. That's why learning to read the intentions behind words and actions is a sign of maturity, not of excessive distrust. You need to know when to step back, when to say no, when to exit with dignity even if no one understands. And most importantly, you need to understand that being good is not an obligation. Kindness should be a choice, not an automatic program. It should come from a place of inner freedom, not from fear of rejection or the need for acceptance. Many people are trapped in an invisible pattern. They believe they must always smile, always help, always be available. But this compulsive kindness hides something dangerous, a lack of connection with their own limits. It's like offering a glass of water when your own well is already dry. So use your kindness wisely. It is a powerful tool. It can transform environments, heal wounds, build bridges, but when misused, it can become an emotional prison. A pattern that drains you, silences you, consumes you. You don't need to become someone else. But you do need to learn how to protect who you are. And protecting yourself requires discernment. You don't owe your sweetness to those who only offer you hardness. You don't owe your loyalty to those who only show you disrespect. You owe nothing to anyone who doesn't recognize your worth. The only real debt you have in this life is to your own truth. And when you start living from that truth, with firmness, clarity, and balance, everything around you begins to change. Relationships restructure, boundaries grow stronger, and finally you are seen. Not as a pleasing character, but as the real person who chooses to live with awareness. Being a good person doesn't mean erasing yourself to keep others at peace. It doesn't mean saying yes when you're falling apart, nor smiling when everything inside you is crying out for respect. It's not about giving up your essence to fit into someone else's expectations. True peace doesn't come from forced silence. It comes from internal coherence, from living in harmony with what you believe, from making decisions that reflect who you are, not what others expect you to be. From looking in the mirror and feeling proud, even if the world is unsettled by it. Being firm is not being harsh, it's being clear. It's knowing that you can be kind and still say enough. It's understanding that you can love and still set limits. It's realizing that you can reach out without letting someone pull your whole arm. Machiavelli left us with a lesson that's uncomfortable yet necessary. Men lose less by injustice than by weakness. This isn't a call to coldness, it's a warning. Because more often than not, it's not someone else's cruelty that destroys us. It's our own inability to take a stand. It's the fear of upsetting others. It's the habit of swallowing everything in silence until that silence becomes pain. So don't be weak, not physically, but emotionally. Don't let your kindness be used as a shield by those who lack the courage to be honest. Don't accept the role of someone who lives only to keep up the image of being good while feeling trapped, suffocated, and exhausted inside. You're not here to follow a social script. You're here to live with integrity. Being whole takes courage. Courage to say no when it's needed. Courage to walk away when the environment is toxic. Courage to stand up even if your voice shakes. Courage to choose yourself every day without guilt. And that choice is what makes you free. Free to be who you are without masks. Free to love truly without submission. Free to walk lightly without carrying weights that aren't yours. The firmness that comes from self-love doesn't drive the right people away. It drives away those who are only there to exploit your vulnerability. And once you understand that, you begin to live a life that is much more real, more fair, and more your own. Now it's your turn. I don't want this video to be just a solitary reflection, but the beginning of a real conversation. Have you ever experienced situations where your kindness was seen as weakness? Have you ever felt guilty for saying no and still ended up being judged? Have you tried to be fair, honest, present, and still ended up as the villain in someone else's story? If your answer is yes, know that your experience could light the way for someone else. Write about your story in the comments. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be long. It just needs to be true. By sharing your story, you might open someone's eyes who's still trapped in this cycle of self-denial. You might give courage to someone who hasn't yet found the strength to take a stand. Sometimes one sentence from you can be the trigger for the transformation someone so deeply needs. And if you're only just starting to rethink how you live your relationships, your boundaries, your values, then I want to leave you an invitation. Continue this journey. Keep questioning, reflecting, studying, discovering yourself. Never accept anything as an absolute truth. Not what you were told, not what you've always believed, not even what I said here. Question everything, always, even yourself. Because real growth begins when we allow ourselves to doubt what once seemed unquestionable. In the description of this video, you'll find a carefully curated reading list. These aren't books with ready-made answers, but ones that provoke the right questions. Works with the power to change the way you see the world, people, and most importantly, yourself. Use this material as a continuation of what we've started here. Study it slowly, deeply, honestly. Transforming the way you think is the first step to transforming your life. Thank you for coming this far. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And stay with us on this journey of clarity, courage, and inner freedom.